What is a soul? What does it mean to have one? And do people only have the privilege of possessing them? And what about the evil creatures of Middle-earth? Do they have a shot at redemption? In this video, I'll attempt to answer these questions, as always through the lens of The Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's own philosophy. Depending on your beliefs, religious or otherwise, you may have different definitions for what a soul is. For some, a soul is simply a word to describe the human capacity for thinking and self-awareness, for sentience. For others, it is all of this and more. It transcends the physical and becomes something spiritual, human. It is something eternal and ever-enduring, something separate from the physical world. The soul is one's true essence. It is what remains when the body is no more. It is what ultimately matters. In Christianity, from which Tolkien was inspired, the latter definition is prominent. Before moving on to The Lord of the Rings, let's explore the Christian and more specifically the Catholic definition of the soul in more detail, as it is absolutely vital to understand this subject. For starters, a foundational aspect of the soul is that it is created and granted by God, and it is made in His image. In His image, meaning it has the capacity for free will, independent thought and action, as well as the opportunity for redemption, which is to join God following the end of your mortal life. Souls are immaterial and immortal. They're not bound by the physical world, though they are affected by one's actions in it. They are affected because based on those actions, we are led to an important component of the soul, which is where it goes following the body's death. In the case of Catholicism, heaven, meaning union with God, hell, meaning separation from God, or purgatory, which serves as a temporary place that purifies the soul before its eternal union with God. Everything mentioned is what made up the core beliefs of j.r.r. Tolkien as he was creating the Legendarium and writing his works. Every Ilúvatar who is God alone possesses the flame imperishable, the ability to create and grant free will, to provide a soul. In The Lord of the Rings, the soul is called Feia, and it is something connected, although not limited by, one's Hroa, meaning body and flesh. The body and soul work in conjunction with each other. They are immaculately made puzzle pieces that fit each other perfectly. While in the physical world, a body cannot function without a soul, and a soul is powerless without a body. Moreover, the soul is what provides the nature of a being. For example, it is because of their unique Feia that elves are bound to the world and can never die. And it is because of their Feia that men are destined to leave the world once their body dies. Evil cannot create, only corrupt. It can only mock. Morgoth created many foul creatures, but using the aforementioned as the foundation of our logic moving forward, he could not have created by himself a being that has the capacity of free and independent will and thought, such as the dragons or orcs. Both of these beings must have originated in something else, the orcs for example from the elves. But the question is, what happened to the souls of the elves that were captured by Morgoth? The soul is eternal, it is immortal, it can never be destroyed. Therefore, it can be assumed that orcs have souls as they have always had souls. If they have souls, then every characteristic of a soul, such as the chance at redemption and afterlife and it being in the image of God, i.e. free will, must also apply. This is further proven by some discrepancies in Tolkien's earliest published works, such as The Hobbit, as opposed to later writings such as The Lord of the Rings itself. In The Hobbit, trolls, wargs and orcs, as well as the dragon Smaug, even though they are beasts and evil, possess some semblance of civilization. They possess sentience, self-awareness, and intelligence in their own way. This means that they are rational creatures that can act based on certain moral values. It means that they must possess a soul. This must apply for all of those evil creatures, as well as the good ones such as the eagles who too can talk and think. These are the possibilities that explain the existence of their souls. If these creatures were created wholly evil, they must have no morality, and yet their ability to think independently implies their ability to have a moral sense. The same is the case if they were considered mere beasts in a humanized shape, whose implication would be that they are not actually sentient, have no morality and therefore no soul, yet we know that this is not the case, as they do have the ability to talk and share their own moral values, however evil those may be. The only way this conundrum can be surpassed is if it is assumed that these beasts, orcs and dragons included, were good in some other form, but were corrupted in some way by the evils of Morgoth, which force them down an evil path that they nearly always walk, but do have the ability to escape from. This would mean that they were made with a soul, that they maintained it, and that they still have the capacity to redeem it, which would not be contradictory to the Catholic belief system that Tolkien himself was inspired by. It should be mentioned though that this would counteract Tolkien's plan for the opposition of the Free Peoples to be evil incarnate, which must be fought and destroyed for the sake of good. I would argue, however, that the fact that evil men such as the Haradrim and Easterlings are shown to have been corrupted and sided with Sauron would prove that there is no issue in this argument. These men are confirmed to possess a soul and everything that comes with it, yet they are still the enemies of the Free Peoples and also support evil incarnate. So I see no problem with the same applying for the orcs and dragons. They were created good, were corrupted, now possess a flawed morality that they cannot easily escape from, but the nature of their soul cannot be changed and therefore they can be redeemed and do have an afterlife. In the case of evil men, this afterlife is the halls of Mandos and a passage outside the bounds of the world. This would mean, of course, that the unjustified killing of orcs and dragons or other sentient beings that possess a soul, as we have established, is morally wrong, as would be the unjustified killing of an Easterling. Having used the orcs as an example to create a foundation for why the dragons must possess a soul, seeing as they are sentient beings, let us now move on to the dragons exclusively and explore the nature of their soul, as well as its future in death. Provided that what we have hypothesized thus far is correct, I have a theory regarding the dragons. Naturally, due to lore limitations, we cannot know the original creatures from which Morgoth is said to have bred the first dragon Glaurung. There are theories that it could have been some sort of Maya spirit like the Balrogs, but information is limited. What we do know is that that creature had been given a soul by Eru Ilúvatar himself, and therefore shares in the flame imperishable. Perhaps it could have been part of Ilúvatar's designs that we do not know of, as Smaug taking over the Lonely Mountain led to Bilbo eventually finding the ring and ultimately giving it to Frodo, who carried on the quest of its destruction. My assumption is that Eru granted a soul to the dragons or permitted their creations by Morgoth, as all of Morgoth's designs ultimately lead to the completion of Ilúvatar's plans as stated in the Silmarillion itself. And thou, Melkor, shalt see that no theme may be played that hath not its outermost source in me, nor can any alter the music in my despite. For he that attempteth this shall prove but mine instrument in the devising of things more wonderful which he himself hath not imagined. As Eru granted souls to the dwarfs when Aule created them, and had them take part in Ilúvatar's designs for the world, so did he for the creatures of Morgoth, provided they did not already start with a soul to begin with, such as the orcs, if they came from the elves. This would be in character with Eru, as seen through his countless interventions within the Legendarium that ultimately lead to ends only seen by him and him alone. Therefore, dragons, alongside others mentioned, do in fact possess a soul, seeing as they are sentient and have a larger role to play within the Legendarium. What happens to them once they die, I do not know. Eru is not a cruel god. He is caring, he is guiding, he is protective, he is stern, and as seen through Númenor's fall, he can be decisive in his judgments and severe in his punishments, but he is not cruel for the sake of cruelty. He is a teacher and a father. If he did provide a soul to these creatures, or if he did create circumstances that would lead to the corruption of their soul without their input, such as the kidnapping of elves by Melkor, or potentially the interbreeding of Maya and animals to create the dragons, then it would be uncharacteristic of him to doom them completely for all eternity. His universe was founded on the principle of free will, and the lore of the rings itself is about the battle between freedom and domination. Therefore, I believe that provided the aforementioned is correct, then they do have an afterlife. They do not cease once they die. They have a chance at redemption, as any creature with a soul does, whether it be men, elves, hobbits, dwarfs, or dragons. I cannot wait to hear your thoughts about this admittedly complicated topic. Any opinions, differing or otherwise, are always welcome and much appreciated. Thank you very much for watching.